Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this afternoon, I'm joined by Sean Molino, who's from the Forces Fitness and also the Veterans Awards. And how are you doing today, Sean? You okay?
Yeah, living the dream, Mike. Living the dream. All excited. Monday morning. Busy inbox, and looking forward to getting through the mound of emails because we're quite busy today, which is a good thing. I think that's what we said earlier, isn't it? Better to be busy than not to be.
Yeah. Are you busy with the fitness, the awards, or both?
A little bit both, really. I mean, the awards, obviously, we can't hold them at the moment. We can't hold the sort of gatherings at the moment. So we've done some socially distanced stuff, but we're still busy promoting people, if that makes sense. So we're still busy promoting a good story. So the admin side of it is still quite busy, even though the actual main award ceremonies aren't going ahead. And Forces Fitness, obviously, with the outdoor fitness, that's going really, really well at the moment because a lot of people want to exercise outdoors. Gyms have opened today, which is great to see because it's all good for everyone's sort of mental health and well-being. But I know there's still a lot of people that are still lemming and are in, should they go back to the gym or not? They want to stay outside a little bit. So we've been really busy, which is great, to be fair.
Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. So we've covered a little bit about what you do, but the place I usually like to start people with when I'm chatting with them is just to find out a little bit about how the lockdown's been for you and if you've done any particular pivoting in your business during that time.
Yeah, I think every business had to pivot initially when the lockdown happened on the 23rd of March. Both so Forces Fitness, which is where I earn my money from, if that makes sense, that's all service led. The Veterans Awards, which is obviously the other organisation that one of the founders of was sitting on the board, that's very service led. So all of a sudden it went from right, hang on, what are we going to do? Because they're all either events or doing things, and we don't sell products, if that makes sense. So we had to pivot a little bit. So I just sort of, at the time, I just took stock. It was a bit of shock factor, like I think everybody. So we went from sort of looking at the Forces Fitness sort of revenue over the next couple of weeks was like 16 grand, and it turned back to about 800 quid. Do you know what I mean? There was still some revenue coming in, thank God. But we had to pivot. With Forces Fitness, we looked at things, how we could adapt to, how we could change, and how we could look to push through when things were lifted, if that made sense. So we changed our delivery to slightly online. Some of it went, which I think a lot of fitness trainers did, although I didn't really like it that much. I'm more of a face-to-face type guy. You probably know that, having met me a few times. I'm people person. I'm not really much of an online guy. But we did do that for a bit, obviously, because we wanted to keep everybody sort of fit and healthy. And then we looked at other options as well. We looked at maybe, I looked at some grant funding to look at running projects through COVID, through to do with health and well-being and mental health. So we were quite lucky to pull a couple of grants, which means we can now hit the ground running, delivering those projects prior to COVID. So I thought there was going to be no way of generating massive amount of revenue through Forces Fitness through delivering outdoors, because we couldn't. We weren't allowed to anyway. We were locked down, so we had to wait till we had the tick in the box, which only came last month. So I thought, what could we do? And it was really looking at grant funding and projects that we can do sort of post-COVID to help, all the issues that have been happening through COVID, because we all know as well as I do, you do, that people's mental health at the moment probably isn't the best. We're just getting back to outdoors. People are going to be anxious because they're still unsure of what's going on. So we want to try and deliver sort of projects that help health and well-being. So that's what in a nutshell, that's how we sort of pivoted with Forces Fitness.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's the reason I started my podcast, is because I knew people were going to be suffering with their mental health issues in lockdown. So I started it off as a motivational positivity podcast. And in the end, because I'm into sales, marketing, networking, entrepreneurship, all those sort of things, it's become quite educational as well. I'm into personal development as well. So I share quite a lot of the good stuff that I listen to, usually on audiobook. And I share just a lot of my knowledge of being in sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship for like 30 odd years, so yeah, similar to yourself, I'm into motivation, and you're motivating people to get fit, and I'm motivating them to get their businesses fit, really.
Yes.
you know
And they fit hand in hand, I think, in all their fairness, Mike. You mentioned a few things like the CPD again. It's part of the 5 ways to well-being, which, I'm a massive advocate of the 5 ways to well-being. So I build that into my business and also into my personal life. And you just said it then, really, that CPD, helping people, giving back a little bit, all those sort of things sort of encompass a good person, but also they're good traits of a good business, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And from my point of view, I used to work with business skills a lot more. In the last sort of 4 years, I've been doing a lot of personal development myself.
Mm-hmm.
And in the lockdown, I've been doing a lot of health and fitness myself as well, because I realized that, if ever there's an incentive to get fit, is whether there's a killer virus out there that attacks you if you've got a not so good immune system. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's a good incentive, mate. Good incentive. Good
Yeah,
incentive.
exactly, like, you know what I mean? So I've always been, fairly fit. I've always been like, somebody who likes to go out and do some exercise, but just not regular, like, and I've started to turn on, exercise twice a day, if you like, since the beginning of lockdown. And I feel much better for it. And that actually led me to come up with this happiness formula, which actually is 5 things you need to do on a daily basis to be happy. And
Yeah,
exercise and looking after yourself is one of them. And
100%. Yeah.
I call it SMART. It's sleep, meditation, ability to perform, which is exercise, nutrition, and hydration, um,
Mm-hmm.
random acts of kindness, and targets. So having
Yeah,
goals. So I call it
100%.
the
Yeah.
SMART formula, like, and pretty much if anyone follows the SMART formula, they
Mm-hmm.
will be happier than if they don't follow it, like.
100%. I think goal setting is a massive key to anything in life, isn't it? It's, you don't just get in the car and just drive somewhere and keep driving and driving. You've got a place you want to get to, don't you? So, you've got your goal. You want to get in the car. You want to drive to that place. You might stop off on the way a few times and pick some bits and bobs up if it's a long one. But yeah, you just don't keep going round and round and round and round and round because you never get to where you want to get to. I think the goal setting for me is huge, and also understanding. I think you've heard me talk before, understanding what failure and failing and sometimes slipping up on your goals and really learning to embrace that sort of failure and try to look at some of the positives from it to either move forward in the same direction or whether you think I need to shift direction here and maybe move and pivot a little bit and try something slightly different. But goal setting and keeping a clear vision of where you want to be eventually is massively key and something again that I would always recommend anybody in life, business, and whichever way you want to do it really.
Yeah, that's it. Most of the successful people in the world start off with the end in mind and then work their way backwards, plan the journey to get to the end. Whereas most of the masses, the majority of people who don't really have any level of success in their life that they would themselves be proud of, a lot of those people, it's because they're always not looking much further than the end of their nose. Just what am I doing right now? What am I doing right here, etc. And they're actually thinking about and planning for anything beyond today and etc. So you've got to be able to see the end goal, plan the journey, and put all of the pieces in place that you need to put in place to get to where you want to get to.
100%. I think it's having a positive mindset as well sometimes and trying to keep that, as best you can. I mean, obviously, not everyone can be positive all the time. We all have tough days, bad days. I'm not saying everyone's cheerful every day, Sometimes I swear at the computer and losing my head sometimes. And then I'm like, right, suck it in a bit. Right, let's go again, because that happens, doesn't it? But, people get stuck in as they can do in a positive mindset, which I perceive as good. You can get people who are really stuck in a negative mindset. And those sort of people, then you will just drown and drain you and or very argumentative. You must have someone on your Facebook like that, or he pops up to challenge you on something, but never likes a picture of, your kids or something you've done over the weekend with your missus, But if you put something up they don't agree with, they're quick jump on the ship. There's loads of those people out there. They do slightly do my head in. I've cleared my profile of most of them, but there's one or two still on there. But, it's just, they're the people I try to sort of steer clear from, really. It's nice to have those people who will help and support you. And we're not necessarily cheerleaders, Mike. And we, sometimes it's nice to have a cheerleader saying, well done, well done, well done. But it's nice to have people sometimes who will challenge you and say, oh, look, Sean, what do you think about this? But, but in a positive way. Does that make sense? And I think that's the way that we could all be. And if we all were a little bit more like that, I think the world would be a bit of a nicer place to live in, really.
Yeah, well, I sort of connected with those people on social media, and obviously I don't really understand the people having to go at the negative side of social media, because I don't really, if there was someone negative on my social media, I'd just switch them off or block them or something, like, what I mean? So I don't really get it, like, but so many people are like, they live in this world of negativity and fear mongering and trolling and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, I haven't got time for that. I haven't got time for trolls. You know what I mean? I just block them and move on. I actually never had anyone I needed to block. But if I did, I would just block them. But I just don't surround myself with those people in the first place. Like, you know what I mean? And,
no, agreed. And I think that's the way forward. You just said it. Try and block them and move forward, isn't it? I think it would be hard sometimes. And you can see it on certain, I mean, Twitter's probably, as much as it's good and as much as brings on another thing, as much as social media is great for some things like business, raising your profile, putting a positive message out there, there's always the flip side of it as well, that, people can jump on you. And I've seen it happen to other people, and I've seen people getting jumped on and getting trolled. And you've probably seen it, haven't you? It's been all the news, celebrities getting trolled for something they've said, and then all of a sudden they're hammered by loads of people. It's just, I don't know. It's just for as much as it's good, also it can be also bad as well in some aspects.
Yeah, I think it's bad if you're insecure, really, and you care what other people think. Whereas with me, I wouldn't care. See, so I want to become a global speaker, and at some point I probably will get those trolls. I haven't had them to date, but I look forward to the day. A bit like James Blunt. James Blunt always deals with his very, cleverly. At the end of the day, it's like, you're a random ghost picture on Twitter. Why am I going to give a monkeys what you got to say about my life? Like, you know what I mean?
Agreed. No.
So too many people do, and those people probably shouldn't be on those platforms so much. Like, if you're going to put yourself out there, you've got to be prepared. I always say it's like when I grew up playing rugby and stuff. You've got to be prepared to give it if you're going to take it. Like,
100%. I think you've got to take the highs with the lows on there, haven't you? Especially if there's a lot of, to be fair, I live my life pretty much on social media now with between the businesses, the not-for-profit organisation and all the other stuff we're doing. It's key for me because, to drive more business, obviously, in the social media marketing, and most people don't know, who's out there. It's probably the biggest and most important thing within our business. I mean, we deliver the sessions, you get good feedback. People need to know about that. So every day there's something going out on some sort of platform, and there's 4 or 5 platforms for each company. So you imagine it's a lot of time to keep doing it, but to do it well as well, because I think a lot of people sometimes would just maybe, if you use like one post to go out on multiple different platforms, it doesn't ring because it doesn't sync. As most people know that LinkedIn speaks differently than Twitter to Instagram, Facebook, all these different sites. So we've got Parler's popped up now as well. I don't know if you've got that one, but there's a lot of social media sites, and they're all very unique. Some work off hashtags, don't they? Some work off tags. Some you do pay-per-click. So there's a lot of it's a great, social media is absolutely great. I love it, but you're right. I take the highs with the lows. If you're on there all the time, you're going to get some crap eventually. I
once had a guy. I had about 30,000 followers at the time, and I had a guy who had about 50 followers, maybe 500 max, something like that. Can't remember. Telling me I was posting too much on social media, and I was like, well, I got 30,000 followers and you got 500. Like, you know what I mean? There's a reason why I've got that many and you haven't. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, thanks for the advice.
Then why did he say that though? Innit? What good is that? Where's the science behind what you said? If there was something he wanted to say, oh look, you posted this on social media, but if you've done this way, you could get more. Do you know what I mean? I just think some people should just shut up.
Just haven't got a clue, are they? Like, I'm like if I was following someone who was posting too much for my liking, because the line is different for every person anyway.
Yeah, of course. Just follow
them and just move on. Like, why you're posting too much? Like, no.
And that doesn't mean that I might not even like that person, or you might not even like that person, because being friends on Facebook or social media doesn't mean that you couldn't be friends outside. So exactly. If people don't like what you're doing, just unfollow, or just don't bother with it. It's exactly. It shouldn't really bother you what other people are doing, really. If that makes sense, you should really be looking after yourself and try and do what's good for you as a person to be happy. But if you're getting upset because someone else is posting stuff, then that's really sort of probably your issue, really, isn't it? Not the person that's posting it, unless it's really bad stuff that they're posting, obviously. But
getting involved in a debate is fine, but just having a go at people just for going about their day-to-day business, it's like, who are you? Who are you to tell them what they can and can't do? Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's fine, because we've all got different views as well. I think it's when people try to push their views on other people is where probably the issue is, I find sometimes, because I've got different views to some other people. I think I'm right most of the time, but sometimes I can have a discussion and I'm going to actually change my mind. But it's when other people really try to force their views on you, and you're like, well, no, because that's the hard bit.
It's often the point where people try and think they're right or they're wrong, like, and often neither is right or wrong, or just opinion. And a lot of the time there is no actual fact in a lot of things. It's just opinion, and we're all entitled to different ones.
That's correct. Yeah, 100%. I'm with you on that, Mike. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess obviously with the fitness, you're obviously showing before and afters and all of that. With the Veterans Awards, what's the different categories of awards? And I guess you're promoting and showcasing, if you like, all of the different winners and nominees and all of that to help increase everyone's profiles, etc.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing with the Veterans Awards, and what we've probably done differently is to most other award ceremonies that are out there, is built really purely around the community. It's not just about the award ceremony. So we've got social media sites. If somebody's got a good story from the veteran community, send it to us. We'll release posts all over our platforms completely free for them. So if you launched a new product, or someone done something new, or there's a good thing that's helping veterans, or there's a company that's got a new transition program, they send that into us, we'll blast that out through our social media and our media partners. So we've got great media partners as well. Pathfinder Magazine, which is international magazine, spot on, and they really help with pushing these sort of success stories out. So that's first and foremost, because everyone thinks, oh, the Veterans Awards is just an awards. Well, it isn't just an awards. That's why I try and get to people. It does say it's just, you know, looking at the title, you could be just thinking that's what it was. So the other things that we do as well, when people get shortlisted, we give them like 3 days where they come down, they can meet all the sponsors, the partners, and it's like basically like a big networking day. So we had one recently, I don't know if you've seen it, in Cardiff Castle. The only thing that we couldn't really network that well because it was underneath the social distance, and so we managed to pull it off where people come in, appointment only, certificate, film the video outdoors. Then people could meet if they wanted to in groups of no more over 30 in the castle grounds, but there was never any more than 10 people there at once, and they sort of filtered through the day, but meeting the sponsors, having a chat. We took all their profile stories, got some great photos next to the birds of prey and everything, you know, all the castle in the background, which are great for them as a keepsake, because we wanted to do something this year because the main awards have been pushed back to 2021. But ultimately, we're here to celebrate the success from within our veteran community in England, Wales, and Scotland, and it's open to anybody, any nationality to serve within the armed forces, serving reservists or companies that support it in each home relevant country where we hold the awards, if that makes sense. It's not just for Welsh veterans, because that was a question that first came up originally, especially when the St. George's Cross came up, and then it was just English veterans. Everyone was like, you can't have English veterans. I was like, no, it's not just, it's the awards in England. Does that make sense? So everyone sort of understood that at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And I do a lot of sort of business news and events marketing, and I'm always looking for content on my blogs and on my social, etc. So feel free to tag me in on anything that you're posting. You know, events, any of that news. You know, you celebrate a lot of veterans in their businesses and that sort of thing as well, don't you? So again, anyone who's got business content, I actually market Welsh business news, UK business news, European news, American news, global news, etc. So I'm always happy to share that. And also, if there's anyone who's got an interesting story and you want to invite them on my podcast, you know, say to them, listen, you know someone who's willing to get them on the podcast and on a YouTube channel and have a chat about their business. You know, I had a visitor on recently, is the most I've had in 1 week, which had 84 views in 1 week, you know, and so, you know, God knows what the numbers will be like in a year or whatever, like, you know, but I get content and I repurpose it and I remarket it. I suppose you probably do the same thing with your award content.
Of course. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that has to be done as well. If you get some good content, it's a good filming as well. You're obviously going to reuse that, aren't you, over and over again? Well, not every week, like, obviously, but you know what I mean. It's nice to bring it out the bag once in a blue moon to repost it as well, especially if it's a good video or a good content or a good interview, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, certain content you should run as a campaign, you know, like certain good videos that you had produced, run as a TV campaign, just regular and often. And the content, I repurpose it for example, using like pictures of upcoming events, you know, for what, you know, the future event might look like, or you know, pictures of last year's event to promote this year's event, and you know, pictures of last year's winners to promote this year's categories and whatever, you know. Just keep reusing the content in different ways, and you can use stuff like when events are coming up. I do quite a lot of marketing for Intrabiz events, and you market all of the events for the month at the beginning of the month, and you market events for that week at the beginning of the week, you know, and just keep so if you repurpose the content and use it, once you've been marketing it for a while with the event coming up, then you market it for a bit after with this is how the event went and all that sort of.
For sure. And that's good. And then you just hit the nail on a bit there with content. I mean, content is good. Having a good photographer is good. Having a good videographer team. I mean, that's ultimately what we want to capture that night, which we have for the first 2 awards. And again, push out all the, you know, the success stories from everybody, just to say, look, it was a great night. The feedback that we had from Wales last year was absolutely amazing. 2 people wanted to sponsor the event. They actually said to me on the night, look, we want to sponsor this event next year. On the night, that was 2 people who were in the crowd. And I was like, wow, it's amazing, thank you. And it was just a nice night. It was just a nice community feel. Everybody was supporting each other within the community as well. You know, everyone was clapping each other. There was no like, oh, I should have had that, or you should have. You know, it does happen sometimes in some awards, because I mean, you have you know, gets a bit hairy, like people moaning to each other, like. But it was just a nice night, and that was the idea. It isn't about the winners really. We wanted to make it different to other awards. We wanted to make it special, an occasion for everybody. So this is why everybody has their profiles go out on social media sites prior. This is why everyone has a video filmed. Everybody their own personal video, you know, with their background stories, gets filmed by us. That, you know, for every finalist. And then, you know, on the night, we wanted to make sure that everybody was sort of rewarded, because it's the community awards, if that makes sense. Yes, there is a winner, there is always going to be a winner, but we don't want to make it about the winner, if that makes sense. It's about all of us celebrating the success together.
And what sponsorship opportunities are there then? Is it just a headline sponsor, or have you got lots of different sponsor opportunities?
So we've always got, there's always sponsorship opportunity. I mean, always welcome if anybody wanted to come on board. I mean, it'd be great to help and support us. We are a not-for-profit organisation, and we're not a big headline charity where our CEO, I'm not smoking a cigar on some yacht or something. Do you mean? None of our board actually get paid, so they're volunteers basically, who are all business leaders in their own right and sit on the board and volunteer their time up for board meetings, for help, advice, governance, and sort of bid writing and stuff. But there are definitely sponsorship opportunities out there. And we will work with you, if that makes sense, on the package that suits you. That's what I say to people. Look, what can you do? How can you help us? And I'll ask, what do you want from us? Because ultimately, most of my partnerships and sponsorships have come from sitting down with someone and saying, look, what can I do for you? What can I do for you, really? If you're going to help and support us, what can I do to help get your brand out there more? What would you like off us? Would it be tickets to the event? Would you like to be linked in with our media partners? Would it be introductions? Like I said, introductions to some of our other partners? Or, what you want? And I think sometimes that's key in sort of, approaching people who you want to work with. It's not really about, what I want off them. Is can we do something? How can we make it work so that you ultimately in the long run get your money back from sponsoring us in some other way, potentially, if that makes sense. So there'll be linked brand awareness to the Veterans Awards, but also, it should sort of pay itself back, because, people will end up working and networking and sort of buying and helping and supporting off each other. So that's the way we try to do it with our partners. But if anyone is out there that does want to get in touch, please, do hit me up with an email or a call or something. It'd be great.
Is there a Forces Veterans business directory? Because if not, I would suggest that would be a good thing for you to create.
Yeah, there is. So there is something called Veteran Owned, and the guy who created that directory sits on my board. So he's so there you go. So I think we've got the great guy called Scott Johnson. It's called Veteran Owned UK. Okay, and that is the business directory. It's actually an app now you can download on your phones. If anyone wants to have a look at that, feel free to. But Scott Johnson, great guy, and randomly lives about 25 miles away from me in Carmarthen. So it's really weird that in Wales, you've got the guy who set up the Veterans Awards in Wales, England, Scotland, and hopefully Commonwealth later on. And then you've got Scott Johnson, who set up the Veteran Owned UK business directory. So there's a lot of good, positive stuff coming out of Wales, which is nice to see as well.
Yeah, definitely, because you're Bridgend way, aren't you?
Bridgend and Coity. So literally, we just moved over to Coity now. Formerly a Bracknell lad, but I've moved across not far, a couple of miles that it is over to Coity.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I know Carmarthen as well. That is the valley just sort of by Port Talbot.
That's it. Yeah, Carmarthen. Yeah, it's and that's literally about 5 minutes away from where I run my boot camp. So we run our weekend residential boot camps through Forces Fitness up in Avon Valley, because it's literally like log cabins, glass fronted building in the middle of nowhere, which is great. There's Wi-Fi in the building, but other than that, you're not going to get it unless you walk up the hills.
I know there's like mountain bike tracks and stuff up there as well, isn't there?
That's correct. Yeah, it's all around that area. So you can imagine it's quite hilly. The tracks are quite good. They're quite challenging. So that's where we tend to run our sort of residential employability bootcamp programs, which you run with third sector, or our residential weekend boot camps. So that's where they're all run up to there.
And are they all picked up again now, or are they back soon? Or
so the employability bootcamp program is not so much yet, but they will be coming back. It will be coming back, if that makes sense. So obviously the sort of providers we've just worked with are only just now starting to get back into the swing of things, if it makes sense. It's going to take a while to organise it, and especially now, because the employability boot camps, they're about getting people back into work. So we'll be dealing with a lot of challenging people basically who live in hostels, maybe who are NEETs, so not in employment or training, maybe come through the criminal justice system, may have drug and alcohol programs. So we'll take them out of the hostels or wherever they live in, or wherever they are. We'll take them up to the lodge for 3-4 days, and it's basically a full dry weekend, everything stripped back into nature, talk about diet, we do team building. It's quite chilled, not like my military shouty boot camps, because it needs to be with the people with. Can't start screaming and shouting at them, they probably tell me to bugger off. But so it's very chill, and it's very, look, this is what, back when I was younger, this is where we are now, and we have a lot of sort of peer-to-peer work, if that makes sense, people who come through challenging times, talking through, you talked about it earlier on, setting goals, understanding, where do they want to be, do they want to just get a job for now, but where do they want to be eventually? What dream job do you want? What do you want to do? What makes you feel happy? And I've always said, something, you can work in a job that makes you feel happy. It isn't like working. You'll get stressed out sometimes. You're going to get stressed out at some point, but you're going to feel happy going to work. Like when I go to work now, I do not feel like I'm going to work at all. I genuinely don't. And that is the greatest place to be. You know, I don't moan about my job. I can't remember the last time I moaned about my job now. But those programs, the employability bootcamp programs, they'll be coming back soon, the next sort of 4 weeks, I think. Weekends are back up and running, which is great. The one-day boot camps are up and running, which is great, all socially distanced, and our outdoor boot camps obviously booming at the moment, pretty full every session, which is great, and they're all sort of outdoors, 2 metre social distancing, no more than 29 on the session, including one instructor, because it's 30, so that's sort of Sport Wales guidelines due to sort of COVID, but no kit sharing for now, so they come up, they pick their own kettlebell up out the back of the van, they'll pick their own resistance band up, and that's the kit they'll use themselves, if that makes sense, throughout the session. But it's good, and we've had to adapt a bit. We've had to adapt a bit to make it fun, but things will start to get relaxed, hopefully, over the coming months, or if a vaccine eventually comes out, whenever that might be, fingers crossed before Christmas, then we should see things sort of really come back to normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you get good engagement with those employability people, or do some people love it and some people not so much like it, and they're forced to do it?
Our employability one, so it's for us, it's been fun. So a 90% success rate of getting people into training or work, which is, I don't know the stats on other programs, but it is absolutely fantastic. So we ripped the scale at the start, which is a self-assessment, which they sit down and they mark themselves how they feel with communication skills, how they feel about their future, so it's not done by us, it's done by them. The self-assessment, if that makes sense. At the end of the course, we mark them again, and then we revisit what happened 6 months later. But basically, by the end of the 6-month revisit, it's a 90% success rate. They're in training or on track to get into a job, or they're in employment, which is, that is outstanding. And the feedback from the people has been great. Sometimes it's hard to get them there at the start, the first day. Does that make sense? You might have a few drop-offs. Bear in mind who we're dealing with, so that's always going to happen. So say we got like maybe 10 or maybe 8 might turn up, or 8 before maybe 6. So you have to, but once they get there, they absolutely love it. They absolutely love it. What I tend to try and do before is go down prior to the boot camp itself, or we call them retreats now rather than boot camp because it doesn't sound so harsh. So before the retreat, I'll go down, I'll speak to them and say, look, this is what it's going to be like. It's not overly physical. It's very chilled. We'll talk about things. You might get up and do a little bit of boxing in the morning on some pads, and then we might go for a walk, and we'll talk about CV writing, interview techniques, and then we might do something outside, team building, go for another. It's very much about taking in the great outdoors, just not having to worry about stuff back home. This is why we put them up there as well. They don't have to worry about things going on in their life, If they got children, they'll be in childcare. If there's any single mother, we'll provide the childcare for them. If there's somebody that's got issues and being led astray a bit, to the drug and alcohol problems, then they're away from that remit, and they're with people, and they want to get themselves back on track and get these goals sorted. But by the end of it, they all have their plan. They have their CV all squared away to the role that they want, but also understand how to tailor that CV to specific roles through the job advert, which most people should do. Otherwise, you're just never going to get any hits. If you use the builder's one for something like printing or something, you're never going to get any interviews. So we try and just teach them that, if that makes sense. And we assign them then an employability advisor, which stays with them for sort of 6 months, which will help for any support and bounce back issues, because that's key. It's all great doing a happy, clappy employability course, but then if you don't give them any support afterwards, they're going to be like, yay, and then they're like, right, what am I going to do now? So they need that support. Or just say, look, pick the phone up, speak to Karen, she'll sort you out, or speak to Les, or what I mean? So they've got that point of contact just for help and support, because we all need that sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. It sounds fantastic. I didn't even know that happened for the employees. But I've always had a mindset that if kids, when they get to the end of school, if they're not going on to education or into a job, I always think they should bring back, volunteering, getting something that gets them used to that regulation, energy, you're getting that drive, goal setting, and all of that. So whether it be, they do in some countries still, you've got to go and sign up for a couple of years, haven't you?
National service now, is it like national service type of thing? Yeah, I don't know if it would work in this day and age of the country, just because of the way that everyone is now and the culture would be. I don't think they will never see national service back again. Personally, that's my own personal opinion.
I think more like a territorial army type national service, which is a bit more fun, but just get them into that routine. Because if they're not going on to a school at the end of school and they're not going into a job, then basically you need something to intervene and stop them getting into that life of doing nothing. Third generation doing nothing. And I think if we had a rule in place that got them to do something, that was beneficial, and a bit like community service, whatever, just something. Yeah.
Well,
But
it would certainly help if someone's there and cementing, the goals. Because again, we've got to bear in mind that some of these children and some of these people might not have positive role models. I like to think that in my house, the kid have potentially got a positive role model in me because, I'm out and working with my company. So I like to think they look at me and they think, but a lot of families don't have that today. A lot of families could be going home and there could be issues with, again, domestic violence or whatever at home. So it's hard for them sometimes. And in school might be their only sort of outlet to that, if that makes sense, where they actually can mix with other people. So no, something like that I think would always help. They do try doing similar. So if they're out of work, youngsters, I think 16 to 25. So there's a place called Workways Plus do a sort of an employment program as such, but they sort of sign up and come to CV days and stuff. So we partnered with them before, and then you've got places like the Prince's Trust. So the Prince's Trust, you must hear the charity, the Prince's Trust. I think they do stuff like trying to get them into work through the sort of fun and engaging type things as well. So there's probably similar type things to what you're saying out there at the moment, which hopefully people and caseworkers and stuff would point these people to.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I didn't know there was that much going on. Like with the away days, the retreat days and stuff. But yeah, they're all good. All good to get people. Sometimes you need that electric shock or jump start, don't you? Like, what I mean? Because, like you say, the life is difficult. They're not getting any positivity, no positive role models, no great ideas, no great information. Handing out the same rubbish CV, like you say. All the sort of things that they just, if they had somebody who was a bit of benefit to them and showed a bit of interest, that person would help them through those problems. And actually, they probably end up still in education or in a job. But, they fall in the cracks because they got no one else helping them. So I think it's great that what you're doing and, trying to get people, out of that situation. Because I don't think there's many people on the planet that are bad people. There are people in bad circumstances and with bad knowledge and bad education. They're not bad people.
Yeah.
There's a small percentage of bad people, and you can't do anything with those. But the vast majority of people, they want to do something. It's just, a school fails them a lot of the time because unless they're academic, school's not interested in them. And then, some people can get a job, usually if they know someone. So, a father or, an uncle or someone can sort them out a job. And then if they don't know anyone who's in work and they're not academic, then they get fallen into the gaps, I think. And I believe that's where there should be a lot more, apprentices and, practical hands-on type stuff, where people can learn a trade,
Well, I think there's sometimes, and that's what tends to happen. A lot of people when they join the military, they probably haven't been amazing academically, infantry potentially more so. But however, I think that's when the skills and the attribute that you learn when you sort of go into the military, sort of man management, the organisation skills, the turning up on time, I think that really turns you into a really well-driven person upon leaving. And then you can decide which way you want to go, whether you go into sort of the leadership role and the management role, or whether you just want to go and just do whatever you enjoy. But I think the other side of it is, especially for the youngsters these days, is trying to find something that they do enjoy. That's a message that I try to get to them. It's all. I wouldn't go chasing the money. I did it for a bit. I think most people probably do. But my advice to them was, don't chase the money. Find something you enjoy. Trying to get a career in that. Again, because that isn't like you're working. And if you do that well, the money will come. And if you forge the right relationships, you deliver things on time, you do well. It'll take a little bit of time, but people will want to work with you. People will want to do partnerships with you. People will want to speak to you and do things. So there's some positive messages for me. Is just, again, just try and find that something that you like and you enjoy for the youngsters or people who are looking to change work. And I speak to adults, and they're like, oh, I'm stuck in a job, I hate it. And I'm like, well, what do you enjoy doing? I'm like, oh, well, I really enjoy doing this. I'm like, well, why didn't you start doing something in there? When you start your own business up, it isn't, I know it's daunting, don't get me wrong, I can imagine it is, because I've been there, it's tough for you, but if you've got a job and you can set something up on the side, the next thing you know, that's getting a bit of revenue, you're happy, and that's your stress release then as well. You don't mind coming home and doing a little bit of work. I never did, working 50, 60-hour weeks, then coming home and doing some stuff with Forces Fitness, because I enjoyed Forces Fitness. It was my hobby that paid me to start with. That's what it was. And then eventually now it's my business that earns money and I can provide for my family. But only because of the things that I've done and, delivered things on time, done things well, and, forged good relationships with good, sound people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this is sort of a message that I'm sharing at the moment myself. Obviously, I do a lot of education aimed at entrepreneurs, salespeople, marketeers, networkers, all that sort of thing. And like ultimately, there's a load of people now who are out of work, and whilst they're looking for work, why don't they just set up a side hustle, just set up something that they enjoy doing, and they might they may decide that in a bit in the future they may be making enough money that they don't need to go and get a job. They can actually just carry on with that side hustle. So I always say to youngsters, when they got nothing to lose, especially so youngsters out of work, then they've got a phone in their hand, which costs more money than anything else they own. Get it to pay some dividends back, because there's so many different things you can do on that phone.
Oh, huge, hugely. My whole business is run more or less from the phone these days, to be fair. I'm on the laptop talking to you, but it's only because it's a bit clearer with Zoom. But to be fair, everything is done through that phone. And if I lose that phone, it's an absolute bloody nightmare. It is. You say that's gone missing. But everything, and most of it, again, we talked earlier on, most of it's done through social media. Yes, we've got databases and email databases where we collect leads, lead generation, and we keep those databases. However, majority of the engagement, as you probably know and everybody else knows at the moment, is through social media sites. Most of that's where I don't know where most of your leads would come from, or most of the businesses. It does for me come through social media, so which again is great.
Yeah. Well, I get lots from social. I believe in 360-degree sales and marketing, so literally everywhere, omnipresent. You know what I mean? Similar to yourself, like some people say, like do social media. Do one account, do it well. I'm like, if you do one account and you do it well, there's millions of people on that one account, but there's also billions of people on all the other accounts you're not on. So, if you want to reach out to as many people as possible, you've got to be on all the platforms. You've got to be doing everything, emails, online networking, offline networking, telesales, sales.
I think with when you look at it in business to business, certainly like LinkedIn, I'm quite proud. You probably noticed that anyway. You're on LinkedIn yourself. I see you on it all the time. So LinkedIn for me, business to business, is without doubt the best platform by far, and all the stats say that as well. If you look at any stats, anyone that's in social marketing, they look at that. Business to consumer for me is Facebook. I think is the first one, and then potentially a toss up really between Twitter and LinkedIn as business to consumer. But business to business, definitely LinkedIn knocks them all out the park. So if you're not on LinkedIn, anyone, get on LinkedIn. Yeah,
I think like the stats are historically, Facebook is the thing that's used the most. So people who are in business who ignore Facebook shouldn't do, because it's anyone who's in business is also a consumer, and private individuals, and a lot of private individuals use Facebook. So Facebook, I think, is the one that actually has the most people on at the most amount of time. But I would say LinkedIn has been catching up with that recently, especially for business people. Like everyone seems to be on LinkedIn now because of lockdown and all of that. Way more people are on there more regularly, more often, and that sort of thing. But LinkedIn is the best social media platform for organic reach. So if you just post something and you get 10 people to like it or comment it within the first hour, that post will go viral. Whereas you can't do that on any other social platforms anymore, because they all want you to spend money on advertising.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, they do. You notice that if you haven't done a paid ad for a while, the reach of your post comes out. I do quite a lot of regular paid ads, to be fair, anyway, on LinkedIn. So I'm on Facebook, sorry. So it does sort of keep ticking over, if that makes sense. But you are right. If you drop off on the paid ads, you sort of like the post reach does sort of like all of a sudden start coming down. You can see it. Starts coming down quite a bit. But no, they're both really good, and if they're done really well, and they could be done for free as well. That's the main thing for people who are setting a new business. If you haven't got a big budget, and I don't spend massive amounts of money on the sort of paid ads. We're only talking maybe £100 a month, if that. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's still quite low, but I'll get my money back tenfold, maybe more than that most times, to be honest, for £100. But again, it's getting the right content, getting the right pictures, which we talked about earlier on, getting the right videos up there, or getting all that good stuff. And making sure that's written in the right way where people will best engage with it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And another good strategy as well with Facebook is setting up a group, with a good keyword name, and just building an audience and a community in a group. So I don't know if you've got a veterans Facebook group, but if you had one, then people could just, I call that a bit like fishing, at sea, when you put the nets out and you go back home, and then you go back the next day and see what's caught up in the net.
I got you. Yeah, I got you. I haven't got one personally, but I know that Scott uses a veteran group quite well. So Veteran Owned UK, they've got the page and they got their group. That makes sense. So there's like a networking group online. I think there's a couple of thousand people on there, I think. But they're all, again, veteran-owned businesses. So if anyone's got anything new, they tend to pop up the new stuff. So I utilize that quite a bit, which is great. Sometimes it's pointless replicating something if it's already out there, I think, with this being done well. So I just utilize that group, which is nice to be on. And then it's nice that, we're not everyone's trying to create the same thing. because there's quite a lot of that sometimes, isn't there? There's so many different things. So I'm thinking like we'll just support him and everything that he's doing, and we'll but I'm fair play to me. If I ever need anything put on his page as well, it's like most people, they'll say, "I'll send it to me and I'll put it up on our main page to promote what you're doing." And it's all been very supportive.
Well, you don't need to have a group, because if you like, he lets you share content to his group. If you didn't, which is what some groups are like, then that's why people set up a second one now. They're like, well,
yes, no, I can imagine. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, not everyone's as supportive of giving their sort of their sort of clients away, I suppose. Which is understandable as well, I suppose, if you're sort of a competitor or something.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm conscious that you probably got things you want to be getting on with, so I'm not going to take too much more of your time. Just let everyone know how they can get in touch with you through both businesses if they're interested in connecting with you on either level,
Yeah, brilliant. So Veterans Awards, if you're interested in putting somebody forward or putting a story forward, if you know a veteran business who are doing something good for the veteran community, or whether you want to come aboard as one of our partners or sponsors, so get in touch at www.veteransawards.co.uk or info@veteransawards.co.uk. We're on all the social media as well, so feel free to message us on that. Or Forces Fitness. So if you're interested in something, we run employability boot camps mainly aimed at third sector, but we also do residential retreats where people can come. We also do team building days with companies and corporates. So we've got multiple amount of services. There's loads. There's about 10 different types. That'll probably be another podcast that we went through all of them. So feel free to check out the website on that one. It's www.forcesfitness.co.uk. But at the end of the day, we're health and wellbeing consultants, and we're happy to help you and just basically have some fun whilst getting fit or broaden your knowledge on the subject of health and well-being. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me today, Mike. It's been brilliant.
No problem. Thanks for coming on and sharing all your information. And I'll let you know when you might see me tag it in first, because I usually publish everything, share it, and then I'll grab the links and send it to you so you can do the same in your own time.
No worries. Yeah, of course, mate. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a nice day.
And you. All the best. Ta-ra.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Bye. Right, and that was Sean Molino. There's nothing else left for me to say now other than have a great day. I know I will. And thanks very much for listening. Cheers. Bye-bye.